The end of the Ice Age and the Pleistocene epoch brought many changes to North America. Paleoindian people were forced to deal with the changing climate, ecosystems, and the kinds of food resources available to them. As the Holocene began, more climate shifts, known as the Younger Dryas, caused climate changes that differed on regional scales. As a response, Native American peoples during this time adapted their material technology, subsistence practices, and residential habits in ways visible in archaeological record. In this video, I flintknap a San Patrice point, one of the projectile point styles used by people during the early Holocene in the southeast US region. San Patrice people learned to use a broader range of subsistence resources, adapted their lithic toolkits to cope with raw material constraints, and occupied a smaller range than earlier peoples had in order to cope with Holocene conditions. San Patrice assemblages date to a range of 2400 to 9000 BP, in the late Paleoindian or early Archaic period. These two periods overlap. Whether an archaeological culture falls into one or the other depends on their adaptations. Late Paleoindian peoples continued to focus on big game hunting, were highly mobile, and had generalized multifunctional toolkits. San Patrice assemblages are part of a geographically larger archaeological horizon, called the Dalton Horizon. It can be demonstrated that Dalton, and San Patrice specifically, practiced generalized hunting, were less mobile than Paleoindian peoples, and had specialized toolkits. This would arguably place San Patrice as an early Archaic adaptation. San Patrice assemblages occur most densely in Louisiana and eastern Texas. They also occur in Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, Central and West Texas, and Oklahoma. San Patrice groups are thought to have their material culture adapted to a forest, Gulf coastal plains environment. Although, those San Patrice sites found on the southern plains are thought to represent groups moving into an open grassland environment and using a different suite of resources. San Patrice points have two varieties, the Hope variety and the St. John's variety. Hope San Patrice points appear to be more lanceolate in shape, while St. John's San Patrice points have shallow side notches. San Patrice points can be described as small to medium-sized points with broad blades, shallow corner notches or constricting hafting areas, and shallow to deeply concave basal areas with prominent basal thinning or fluting. The lateral area, or notches of these points, and the base were abraded. The basal corners tend to form fine ears due to the concave base and notches, or hafting area. San Patrice points can either have regular edges or be serrated. Hope and St. John's varieties do not appear to transition from one form to the other over time. In fact, evidence shows that they were used alongside each other for the same kinds of tasks. The early Holocene, when San Patrice groups lived, was a time of rapid environmental changes. The Earth was gradually warming as Ice Age conditions ended, although younger dry ice events caused fluctuations in conditions. As temperatures rose, so did the sea levels. Meltwater from Ice Age glaciers caused significant changes in river patterns across the North American continent. By the Holocene, 35 genera of Pleistocene fauna, including the megafauna, became extinct. At the same time, environmental conditions favored the spread of grasslands in the American plains, which allowed bison populations to rise. In this region, bison, both the extant species and extinct ones, became the primary game animal of Plains Native Americans. Cold climate forests in eastern North America, composed of spruce, birch, and ash, were replaced with richer forests of species including oak, pine, and hickory. In the southeast specifically, spruce and oak forests gave way to southern pine. In the pine forests of the southeast, San Patrice groups would have hunted white-tailed deer, rabbits, fish, and turtles. Those groups on the plain would have taken advantage of bison herds for hunting. The Howard Gully site in southeast Oklahoma appears to have been a San Patrice bison kill site. Previous archaeological investigation here has shown that this site was used for hunting bison by late Paleoindian people. More recently, the landowner discovered a San Patrice point eroding out of the sediments in association with bison remains. Since San Patrice assemblages are rare on the plains, it was an alluring research opportunity for archaeologists. In one of the excavation trenches they uncovered, another San Patrice point was found in direct association with bison bone elements. Collagen extracted from one of these bones produced a date of 10,214 BP, putting the site right in the known San Patrice time range. 1 or 2 bison are represented by the remains at this kill site, indicating that it was an isolated event for these San Patrice hunters. A number of flakes were recovered as well, which were possibly used in butchering these animals. Neither of the San Patrice points have beveling, and appear not to have been reworked or resharpened since the manufacture, as far as I can tell from the photos. San Patrice people would have also foraged for wild edibles, but to my knowledge there's not been any plant remains preserved and recovered at known San Patrice sites. San Patrice points used for hunting would have been part of a spear thrower, also known as an atlatl and dart. However, the amount of these points were resharpened and beveled, and useware data suggests that these were used as knives as well. Useware analysis at the Big Eddy site in Missouri shows that San Patrice points were used as both knives and projectiles. Other Dalton variant biface styles seem to show this same kind of dual use. San Patrice points may have been hafted to removable foreshafts that tipped atlatl darts for use as projectiles, but could have also been used as a hafted knife once removed from the main shaft. San Patrice points could have also been transitioned from one function to another over their use life due to repair and resharpening. San Patrice points are some of the earliest points in the southeast to be notched rather than lanceolate. Lanceolate styles work great when large sizes of raw material are available, because the point can be made as long as the flintknapper wants. When constrained by raw material size, lanceolate points use a lot of potential length in the hafting area. Notches help alleviate this hafting issue and allow for a longer cutting edge, which is important for use as a knife. San Patrice points have a basal concavity, a design element which means that a person hafting one can cut a shallower notch into the foreshaft or knife handle that they are hafting it into. Notching also allows for a narrower shaft or foreshaft for projectile use, and moves the lashing out of line with the edge, which allows for better penetration in hunting. Blade length preservation was key, because in many of the locations in which San Patrice points occur, such as Louisiana, raw materials are not only sparse, but also fairly small in size. In Louisiana, San Patrice points were commonly made from citronelle gravel, or Red River gravel, as well as other cherts, petrified wood, and quartzite. In Texas, Edwards Plateau chert, Alabates chert, and regionally available quartzites were used. In the range of places San Patrice assemblages are found, they tended to make use of locally available materials. The San Patrice point that I'm making is out of a spall of Georgetown flint from Texas. There are exceptions in which extra local material was used in San Patrice assemblages. At the Twin Birds Island site in Caddo Parish, Louisiana, there's a flake tool made from a very rare material. This piece is made from obsidian, and may be the only prehistoric stone tool in the state made out of obsidian. Retouch and use-wear analysis shows that this was an actual tool, not just a curiosity to the San Patrice people at this site. Trace element analysis matches this flake tool to sources of obsidian all the way from Utah, an incredible distance. San Patrice peoples also made a number of different tools besides projectile points and bifacial knives. Flake tools, end scrapers and side scrapers, denticulates, gravers, drills, and bearings are also found in San Patrice assemblages. These people also made a unique tool called an Albany scraper. Albany scrapers are a unifacial tool type commonly associated with San Patrice Points in the southeast. They have a single, straight to concave working edge that is steeply beveled for scraping. They have straight bases and a pair of side notches, suggesting that they were hafted. The examples recovered at the Twin Bird Island site were made from flat, thin pieces of river gravel chert. Use-wear analysis shows that these Albany scrapers were used in a scraping or shaving motion on a material like wood. Dalton assemblages to the north of where San Patrice Points most commonly occur have adzes in their toolkits. I did not find any mention of adzes in San Patrice assemblages during my research. Archaeologists hypothesize that these related Dalton groups made use of adzes for making dugout canoes, bowls, masks, and for other general woodworking tasks. San Patrice people adapted to the newly changed Holocene environment in a number of ways. They started making notched projectile points to cope with the size restraints of locally available chert sources. Unlike earlier Paleoindian people who focused on big game hunting, San Patrice groups generalized their diet to encompass medium and small game as well, and presumably more plant foods. Their toolkits also contained more specialized tools compared to generalized, multifunctional Paleoindian toolkits. The broader diets of San Patrice people also meant that they didn't need to follow game herds and could occupy a smaller home range than Paleoindian people tended to. These groups, as part of the larger Dalton tradition, were among the first to have an early archaic adaptation in North America, as opposed to a Paleoindian one, which helped them cope with a landscape that had changed dramatically from what their ancestors had known.